Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go after the lefts, we go after the rights, we go after the middle and independents, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
I swear, for all of those who don't know that movie, it is so relatable right now. Today's date, July 8th, 2026. This is How the Frack Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. How the Frack Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we do get started, guys, let you know that we do pride ourselves on Me On News podcast. We only cite from sources with award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, The Daily Beast, CBS News, wherever extreme left or extreme right you get your views from. We simply don't do that. We value just the facts. At the same time, guys, we do make show things that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. Now, I'm going to be honest. If you were not, if you're basically wasn't born, if you were born after the 90s, you're not going to know that movie. But that movie, Weekend at Bernie's, explains so much. Why? Because we now have the 2026 version of Weekend at Mitch's, which is going to be the story we're getting into, which is actually the title of this week's podcast. Let's be honest. If there's a guy right now that everybody wants answers from, because whether or not this man is with us or might be with us in a vegetable type of state, we don't know. But yes, the person that we're talking about is that good old Moscow turtleneck wearing as a skin suit son of a bitch, Moscow Mitch McConnell.
About Senator Mitch McConnell's health condition more than 3 weeks after a medical emergency sent him to the hospital. The former Senate Majority Leader has not been seen since then. His team has not said why he was hospitalized or disclosed any details about his condition. NBC News reported last week that paramedics conducted CPR on a person experiencing cardiac arrest at McConnell's home the same day that his office announced he had been hospitalized. NBC News senior national political reporter Sahil Kapoor joins me now. So Sahil, have we heard anything from McConnell's staff recently? And what is the plan if he continues to be away from the job?
Vicky, we have heard from his office, but they aren't saying much. The latest update from his spokesman came 5 days ago, confirming that Senator McConnell is still in the hospital, saying he appreciates the outpouring of support he's receiving. And, quote, the senator continues to improve and is working closely with his staff on Kentucky and Senate matters while the Senate is out of session. This came 1 day after we reported on that police scanner audio that showed paramedics carried out CPR on someone at McConnell's address facing cardiac arrest while unconscious. Here's what his office has not commented on: whether that person was McConnell, why he was hospitalized, what his condition is today, whether he's expected to make a full recovery, and what his timeline is for returning to work. There's a new tweet just moments ago from Scott Jennings, a former McConnell aide, who said he spoke to McConnell for nearly 20 minutes today on issues ranging from Iran to Ukraine to the drama in Maine and even some Senate history. We're also hearing in the last few minutes from the offices of the top two Republicans, John Thune and John Barrasso, both of whom say that those two senators spoke to McConnell either yesterday in the case of Thune or today in the case of Barrasso about a variety of issues. Apart from that, McConnell's team has not released photos or video updates from the senator, which has fanned some theories online, including on the right, about why more Republicans aren't speaking about it. Here's how Utah Senator Mike Lee responded to that. Quote, many of us aren't speaking about Mitch McConnell's condition because we know nothing about his condition. Vicky.
All right, well, we hope.
Yeah. We know nothing about his condition because nobody's freaking talking. At the same time, Mitch McConnell has not been seen for now going on almost a month. He has not been at his offices, whether in D.C. or in Kentucky. And supposedly, two people have talked to him. So CNN pundit Scott Jennings, if you know the name, well, he's pretty much a ass kisser for the conservatives, an ass kisser for Trump, and now he's an ass kisser for Mitch McConnell. But I love what they did at CNN, because what they did was flat out say, hey, proof of life. just humorous.
As we wrap up here, do you think he'd be willing to call into the show? Could we get him on the phone now?
I wasn't really expecting him to call this morning, to be honest. So when the phone rang and I was able to talk to him, I was frankly pretty grateful. I mean, as I said, I've known him since I was a teenager. If it hadn't been for Mitch McConnell and the McConnell Center at the University of Louisville, I would never have been able to go to college. He's been my mentor and he changed the trajectory of my life. So, when things happen to him and happen to people in your life that you really care about, you just sort of naturally feel extremely worried. So when I heard his voice today and he was clearly keeping up with stuff, that made me happy to hear from him, because like everybody else, I've been, somewhat in the dark about it. But to hear him talking and to know that he's also talking to the Senate leadership, it made me pretty happy.
So let's stop right there. All she asked you was, hey, could you get him on the phone for us for proof of life? This man went on a diatribe of, well, he was such a great person and he's had such a profound impact on my life. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know where I would be without Turtle Moscow Mitch. All she asked you was, could you call him and we can verify? Because again, when it comes to Mitch McConnell, who again hasn't been seen or heard from for almost going on a month, possibly hospitalized, possibly might be a vegetable, if you do believe, of course, David Parkman, they have a source that says Mitch McConnell's brain dead. Laura Loomer, if you believe that mean girl from the conservatives, also said that Mitch McConnell might be brain dead. Here's the one thing I'm just going to point out, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. Mitch McConnell's wife, former Secretary of Transportation, she traveled to China. She's currently in China right now. Now, I know for a lot of y'all are wondering, well, why would the wife of a senator, just all of a sudden, a senator who had a fall, who had a cardiac event, went in the hospital, and now this woman, like 3 days ago, decided to take a flight halfway across the world to China, while your husband is in the hospital. Let's kind of be honest a little bit here. There's only two reasons why she would fly the coop back to China. One of them is, and I hate to say it, your husband might be a vegetable. He might be brain dead. Unfortunately, when it comes to heart attacks and things of that nature, and there's deprivation of oxygen to the brain, McConnell might be a vegetable. Body's still going on, but medically speaking, he's brain dead. Now, again, we cannot confirm or deny if he is, but the way they're treating it is the same way we talked about Weekend at Bernie's. That Mitch McConnell started to become the what's that guy from Harry Potter that everybody loves? The name that they will not say. Crap! The name is escaping me right now. Dang, I could not think of that guy's name. The boy who lived has come to die. Anyway, the person, but they're trying to treat it like him. Like if you say Mitch McConnell's name, it's like, don't say his name. No, because he is, unfortunately, still a senator and who actually carries votes. Now, here's the crazy part about this entire thing with Mitch McConnell, outside of the fact his wife is dipped. Two people supposedly heard from him. If you believe those two people, the Republican majority leaders have heard from him. Nobody in public can confirm or deny outside of that they talked to this man. At the same time, here's the other problem. Even Governor Beshear has sat there and said, can we get a wellness check on this guy? Because again, he is 80 plus years old. And I said before, Congress is a nursing home with power. Because we don't have term limits for senators. We don't have term limits for representatives. That as long as they keep running and they keep getting elected, they can still remain in office. I always thought that was a problem. I always thought that senators and representatives should have the same term limits as our executive branch. If the president cannot serve more than 2 consecutive terms, neither can senators, neither can representatives. I guarantee if that law, if that ever became a thing, if we added that as an amendment to our Constitution, our government would change dramatically. I am just saying. But getting back to Moscow Mitch for a second, because again, like I said, why would your wife fly off to China unless you are just not no longer with us brain-wise? But here's the other thing the Republicans are doing, because keep in mind, if Mitch McConnell is incapacitated or he's basically been removed from our plane of existence. Basically, he's been moved on from our plane of existence. If he is, Republicans have a problem that in Kentucky. Now, keep in mind, in Kentucky, the governor doesn't have power as far as appointing a replacement. What usually happens in Kentucky, if a senator is compromised or can no longer run, it opens a special election. Now, here's the thing about that special election. That special election has to happen within the next 3 weeks. Which means that if you're paying attention, by the end of July, if this election hasn't occurred, then by the state's rules, that Mitch McConnell could technically be the senator until the midterms, which is in November. Kind of messed up for a vegetable. If he is a vegetable, he might be, he might not. But in the event that he is, and in the event he gets to July and there is no special election, then on ballot, he can remain on as senator until the midterms, which is something Republicans would love to have, because that means that's a vote that cannot be used against them. Now, you remember Thomas Massey? Thomas Massey was a Republican that stood up to Trump. He was one of the guys that, was very staunch about releasing the Epstein files, was very staunch about, Trump owning up to his word. And because he turned against the golden calf, they decided to out him in the primary, spent a whole bunch of money to get him out of the primary. But with that being said, if a special election was called within the next 3 weeks, Thomas Massey could run again. He could run again under a special election. And let's be honest, he's still a very popular conservative person. I mean, he's conservative, but at least he was a conservative that didn't mind standing up to his own party. That's the thing about it. And this is why Democrats are saying Republicans are holding the ball. Because if McConnell is not well, then at the same time, they're basically hiding it. I mean, like I said before, he hasn't been seen in his office for almost a month. He supposedly spoke to people over the phone, but no public appearances whatsoever. I am just saying, like I said before, he may or may not be a vegetable, although we all know he's getting hospital care. But I'm just saying, if your wife jetted off to China, you are either alive, but the lights are on, but nobody's home, or you're pretty much I'm just saying. But we will keep up with that story as it goes, because apparently Mitch and Weekend at Bernie's have something in common now. But speaking of politicians, let's be honest, Democrats are taking a hit. Why? Because Senate hopeful is actually dropping out of the race. And honestly, it says a lot about the vetting process not being handled properly.
And we do have breaking news. Maine Senate candidate Graham Plattner is suspending his campaign and will withdraw from the ballot. In a statement, he said what comes next needs to come from the people of Maine. We believe that for the movement to continue, it can't be me. For that reason, we are suspending campaign operations. Our senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang, joins us now. Selena, it feels like this has been several days in the making. Of course, there was that bombshell allegation against Plattner of rape, allegations that he denies. Do we have a sense what finally made him decide that this was really the only course of action left?
Yeah, Lindsay, well, I think this was culminating, to your point, for quite some time. I mean, it just became at a certain point untenable for him to stay in the race. And the big question was when and how was he going to announce his withdrawal? So we're finally getting this via a video message. And what he said in the video, that what comes next needs to come from the people of Maine. He continued to say that we believe that for the movement to continue, it can't be me. For that reason, we are suspending campaign operations. Earlier in the video, he also said that he learned about this through press inquiries with no time to truly respond, no time for investigations before a, quote, corporate media system and the political establishment got to act as judge, jury, and executioner. Accusations are supposed to be the beginning of things, not the end. So clearly he is still defiant. He is, of course, denying all of these allegations, but it wasn't just one or two bad articles. It was a string of them over the course of several weeks, Lindsay.
And we know that there had been a lot of controversy really swirling around him, even in the weeks prior to this most recent allegation. What do you think it was in this moment that made him decide that he really had to drop out of the race?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, he had so many endorsers, key members of Congress who all came out and said he needs to leave. The first articles that we saw, there were allegations of toxic behavior, extramarital relations with women. But then the latest allegations were more serious, of sexual assault allegations. And for many of his endorsers, that was a bridge too far. Ro Khanna, I was actually at his rally right before the primary elections in Maine, and I'd spoken to Ro Khanna, Congressman Ro Khanna, about why he was continuing to endorse Plattner despite the first series of articles accusing him of various toxic behavior. And what he told me was when there are serious accusations of sexual assault, that is where I draw the line. And the big question when I was speaking to Democrats in Maine was, is this it? Is there more to come? Clearly there was more to come, and it was a bridge too far.
What happens next at this point?
So attention is now certainly going to shift to the nomination process for a replacement. That's going to be determined by a vote from the Maine Democratic Party's executive committee. But whoever is chosen, it's going to be a challenge for them. They're going to have a much shorter timeline to try and oust Susan Collins, a Republican senator who is a well-known lawmaker, who is going to be someone tough to beat. She is a longtime lawmaker from Maine. She is seen as a more moderate. So this situation is going to be challenging for the Democratic Party.
And of course,
Oh, it's going to be challenging indeed. Because again, whenever I just wonder, what is the vetting process for these guys? Now, Graham Plattner, he did have a lot of great points. He did challenge status quo, saying that he was not bought, that he was refusing all types of campaigns like AIPAC, which all seem great on paper. But the man did have one too many scandals. And let's also be honest, when you have one too many scandals and you are trying to, be the maverick, I guess you can call it, folks pay attention to that, especially when it comes to allegations of sexual assault and rape. And again, if he's there, my whole thing was, if you were really that innocent, you wouldn't drop out the race, which tells me that there might be something there. But again, Plattner's out. There is a Democratic vacuum in Maine because, again, Democrats are trying to win back the Senate. As we have said before these midterms, Democrats have one goal. I would like to think, if I was a part of the consulting group, I would say Democrats have one goal, 2/3 of Congress. And right now, Republicans do hold a slim majority in the Senate. They hold a slim majority in the House of Representatives. Now, could that change in November? Hopefully so. But at the same time, it doesn't help if your candidates can't pass the sniff test because, they might have got their hands caught in the cookie jar one time too many. But I digress. But moving right along, I had to cover this as well because, again, we are talking about candidates and this pendeja. And I say this pendeja, Marsha Blackburn. Now, if you are in Tennessee, you know who Marsha Blackburn is. If you are a Republican, 9 times out of 10, you know who Senator Marsha Blackburn is. She is probably the most useless senator to this side of Lindsey Graham. But with that being said, this woman has meticulously avoided debates, avoided speaking to Tennesseans, avoided all the above. and yet somehow this pendeja still gets elected. She was asked by local channel WSMV why she won't participate in a debate before the election. We really shouldn't be surprised by this answer.
To hear side-by-side discourse with the candidates for governor in the primary election and in the fall election with the Democratic nominee.
Yeah, and with the Republicans, we have had lots of forums across the state, and where all three of us have been on stage. And that's a good thing because people have been able to see us on stage, then they've been able to hear from us. Plus, we have had a very aggressive grassroots campaign, a lot of door knocking, a lot of phone calls, direct contact with voters, and they know that we are focused on what we do for Tennessee. They know that people in Tennessee are, what they've told us is that jobs, the economy, higher wages, and cost of living, that's kind of that top bucket of issues. Second is public safety, and third is education for our children.
Well, a forum is not the same thing as a debate, though. A debate has a moderator or a number of questioners, and all the candidates have a limited amount of time to say what the answer to the question is, and then, see how you respond side by side. Why won't you do that in the primary?
We have been talking to Tennesseans every single day, and we have done plenty of these forums across the state.
And that's the problem. The problem is with this pendeja, and yes, I know what a pendeja is, and she is definitely that. I would love to call her the C word, but again, YouTube. Marsha Blackburn believes that a forum is a debate. It's not. A forum is nothing more than an echo chamber. It is a group of people that are simply passing on their ideas, and nobody is arguing, and nobody is debating, and there's not an exchange of ideas. There's not. A forum is like the kindergarten version of kumbaya for politicians. There's no threat. There's no, oh God, I may actually have to do some thinking. I may actually have to do some politicking. The reason why Marsha Blackburn does not want to debate, ladies and gentlemen, and she says this whole thing of, we've done plenty of forums. A forum, as the journalist said, a forum is not a debate. A forum is nothing more than just people sitting around shooting the breeze over a certain topic, while a debate means that you basically have to stand up, produce your arguments, and defend them. Marsha Blackburn has nothing to defend. And I know for a lot of people, a lot of people sit there and say, you just don't like Marsha Blackburn. I do not. Because for her to be a representative, and don't get me wrong, I call Tennessee a progressively backward state all the time. Even though born and raised here, there are some great things about Tennessee, but there are some messed up things about Tennessee. And it all should be on the table. But I won't say women, that's wrong. But people like her will sit there and whitewash it, because keep in mind, she wants to build an ICE-like task force here in Tennessee. She wants to have more data centers. One that we're currently fighting that might be less than a mile away from a Nashville Zoo. Where, again, for all those that don't know, data centers do affect the environments they're around. Do you really want that around animals? Just saying. She has voted against Obamacare. She has voted against the Affordable Care Act. She has voted against the Violence Against Women Act because it included Native American, LGBTQ, and trans people in the bill. She voted against it. And she talks about, and again, the way she talks tells you volumes, because every Republican says this. Well, we've talked to many of my constituents. They are, jobs, cost of living, education, and safety. Republicans all repeat that. It's like, what is that? The general thesis that you guys have whenever you get asked questions? That tells you off the bat. And Marsha Blackburn is like Ted Cruz. She's barely in the state. Every time you see her, she's hopping on a plane to go somewhere else. And again, Marsha Blackburn, I will say it before because it needs to be said again, she does not debate because Jerry Green, also a governor, a person running for governor of our state, wants to debate. There are other Republican candidates that would love to debate her. But here's the thing about Marsha Blackburn. She's learned from Diaper Dawn. And what has she learned? She has learned that, hey, as long as I don't debate, no one's going to hold that against me. Because again, here's the thing the Republicans have figured out. They'll lose debates. They'll lose debates, but they'll win amongst idiots if they play their cards right. And yes, I said idiots because I can't think of anybody else but an old white man voting conservative. If you're a black person voting conservative, in my opinion, you're voting against your own interest. If you're a woman voting conservative, in my opinion, you're voting against your own interest. So I'm sorry if that insults you, but it's true that the GOP is not for you. Will never be for you. But would love for you to join on and be their mouthpiece. Don't believe me? Ask Nicki Minaj how that's working out for her right now. But getting back to the fact that this is all leading to the showdown in November, and I say this before we move forward. Please, oh please, do your research on who you're voting for. Figure out what they voted for and what they voted against, and pay close attention to those that debate and don't. Because again, that will scream volumes about the candidate that is wanting your vote to represent your state. And I'm sorry, Republicans, all of them, unfortunately, need to go badly. And the reason why Republicans need to go badly, because what Trump and the White House are doing right now is that they're waging wars on many fronts. Now, they want to wage a war with the Smithsonian. Why? Because they don't like the way history is being taught, which is correctly at the Smithsonian.
Scathing new report. The Trump administration accuses the leaders of the Smithsonian of being radical activists. The report, released by the White House Domestic Policy Council, claims the Smithsonian cannot be trusted to tell America's story honestly, adding the leadership has moved the museum's mission away from straightforward historical education and scholarship toward an extreme political activism that seeks to transform our country. The report singles out the National Museum of American History, saying it would benefit most Americans if the Smithsonian's flagship history museum had a label at every entrance that reads, "Warning, the exhibits in this museum were prepared by people who don't want you to love your country."
The notion of being a more perfect union, not the perfect union, is really what motivates me.
In an unrelated interview, the secretary of the Smithsonian defended the institution's portrayal of America's history.
America's greatest strength, it's not running away from its history, but it's understanding how that history shaped us and continues to shape us.
But President Trump has targeted museums and historic sites he says paints too negative a picture of America's past.
We want the museums to talk about the history of our country in a fair manner, not in a woke manner or in a racist manner.
Last Friday, an appeals court cleared the way for the administration to replace the slavery exhibit at this historic home in Philadelphia, where George Washington enslaved 9 people. Critics say the administration is whitewashing U.S. history.
The story of slavery must be told here, there, and everywhere, as America acknowledges its 250th anniversary and talk about what a great country it is.
The city of Philadelphia.
So what's crazy about this, folks, is Trump is trying to wage a war with the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian, the Smithsonian Institute, an institution that has been around and it has literally been our history book, if you will. And Trump looked at it and go, "I don't like the way white folks are being presented. You're making us look like racist colonizers, murderers, and overall terrorists." Yeah, that's been America's history of white people. You guys have done a lot. But what's crazy is he wants signs set up saying, these signs are saying what these displays are to make you hate your country. Really? Here's the thing. Germany has figured out that, hey, we might want to tell the kids about, hey, remember that time some of us decided to become Nazis and follow a guy? Yeah, let's talk about it. But let's also make sure it doesn't happen again. That's how you learn from history. I will never understand this. And I'll be honest, in my 43 years, I will never understand how America will sit there and celebrate 250 years, which they just did, right? 250 years they celebrated just 4 days ago. But you don't want to acknowledge the 400 years where one race did own another. 400 years of slavery, followed by another 400 years, or at least, let's be honest, another 1400 years that's saying we still haven't progressed where we should have. But what kills me out of all this is the fact of the matter is that Trump really does believe that history is being taught as woke manner. This is the reason why he wanted to disband the Department of Education, because he said the same thing. Oh, they want to indoctrinate, they want to induce woke, they want to teach CRT. No, teachers just want to be able to teach kids and not worry about I don't know, parental influence from like Moms for Liberty. We haven't heard that name in a while. The fact that the Heritage Project and Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 trying to curtail education, including history, and like they said, trying to whitewash history. Because it's amazing that what kills me is, why doesn't America never want to talk about its historic issues with slavery, internment camps, Trail of Tears, purchasing eminent domain, moving people who've owned the land for years and moving them out in the name of progress? Why is it that some Americans feel so uncomfortable? Because it's almost like you don't want to admit that there is a monster under the bed and it wears red, white, and blue just like you. But again, it's Trump. We should not be surprised that he's going after everything that he cannot control or maintain. But if we haven't figured out by now, everything he touches turns to shit, literally. But moving right along, guys, we do have another strike. We do have another strike in the works. And again, as I've said about strikes, what does it always come down to? Paying people a livable wage.
Now to breaking news. More than 4,000 nurses and home care clinicians walking off the job in Boston. Larry, you have the latest on this. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you, Michael. So this might be the biggest nurse.
Now to a massive nurse strike looming in a major American city. Thousands of nurses and home care clinicians expected to walk off the job tomorrow in Boston. Ariana and Allie is tracking the latest. This could be serious, Rihanna.
Yes, good morning to you both. Yes, this could be the largest strike of its kind in Massachusetts history. So on Wednesday morning, 4,000 registered nurses at Brigham and Women's Hospital and about 450 home care clinicians could start two separate strikes. The nurses are asking for higher raises to offset cost of living, more affordable health insurance choices, and for the hospital to hire more permanent staff instead of temporary travel nurses. The Union for the Nurses blames Brigham and Women's Hospital for failing to come to an agreement in the nearly 24 bargaining table discussions. Now, Brigham and Women's Hospital says the nurses are already among the highest compensated in the market, and they currently receive annual 5% wage increases, and that the hospital's proposal ensures every nurse receives increases while also preserving competitive health benefits, retirement support, paid time off, shift differential payments, and professional development opportunities. Now, the hospital says it does take seriously the union's decision to strike. They are fully prepared to continue providing high-quality patient care throughout a work stoppage. Politicians are urging the groups to return to the table, saying a strike and a lockout of this scale would cause serious disruption. And again, they have been to the table more than 24 times. So.
And yet, how many times have we sat there and said, these folks, these companies ran by corporations will always play Russian roulette. And I'm sorry, with the fact that we have a shortage of nurses, with the fact that some hospitals are not staffed well enough with nurses to run to where patient care is affected. And in Boston, of all places, do you really want to test that with that union of nurses? See, this is the thing I'm getting at, folks. Healthcare is a for-profit system. That's always been the problem. I will always say that. But you can have all the doctors you want. I will say this off the bat because I know it's for a fact. You can't run a hospital without nurses. You can maybe lose one or two doctors. The hospital's fine. You lose a bunch of nurses at a hospital. Watch how fast that hospital scrambles to try to find staffing. And no disrespect to travel nurses, no disrespect, because those travel nurses do go into places. I mean, they get paid. They depending on what they do. I understand some of them get very, very well compensated. I understand that. No disrespect, no shade, respect. But the thing is, with nurses, I will say this off the bat: it's one of those jobs that don't have a slow day. You are dealing with not only staff of doctors and technicians, things of that nature. You are dealing with the human condition. You are dealing with folks. You're dealing with a massive area of patients that could be stable to not stable, to mental, to schizophrenic, to having bowel problems. I am just saying, although I am not a nurse myself, but at the same time, I see what nurses go through. Pay them properly. Because again, Boston, or I should say Brigham Young, Brigham and which is the company there, Brigham and Women's Hospital and Mass General Brigham. I don't think you guys want to find out what happens when all nurses strike. Because yeah, we're prepared. You might be prepared to pay travel nurses for a bit, but travel nurses, from my understanding, come with a premium. And again, what's more important? The fact that you have nurses who are very well taking care of your patients, or the fact that you yourself may be out of a job because you blew the budget on travel nurses because you thought that was a good idea. I am just gonna say with the track record, when it comes to strikes, the other side usually wins. And I mean by the other side, I mean those that actually do go on strike, not the corporations. Because again, I am not saying that all it takes is just to pay people, but it's honestly that freaking simple. And at the end of the day, you're still going to wind up paying them more because it's going to hurt you in the long run. Which again, if you just paid them what they were worth in the first place, you wouldn't have this problem. But like I said, we'll see. Also, the fact that we did actually see an Air Force major decide to call for the president and the the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, to be stepped down. And the coolest part is this guy did it while in uniform.
Vice President must be impeached, convicted, and removed.
Yes!
The president and vice.
Now, the man that you see there, his name is Major Jason Watson. Of course, he is an Air Force major, as you can see there, as it says right there. Did speak at Capitol Hill and, of course, was arrested afterwards. Now, I'm not saying this is the beginning of a trend because, let's be honest, a lot of people, especially in the armed forces, believe that Pete Hegseth shouldn't be Secretary of Defense. I'm one of them because, again, the man hasn't seen war. He has commanded. At the same time, his claim to fame is being enlisted in the National Guard. No shade to the National Guard. But this man is definitely not meant to serve and commandeer American forces. That being said, shout out to that major. Of course, we know he will keep up with that as far as his story and what they will do from there, because I'm pretty sure Trump and Hegseth had something to say about it. So the next couple of stories, guys, are going to be on the more graphic sensitive side. So before I do get started, trigger warnings, because for a lot of people, this is shocking, but for Black people, this is starting to become Tuesday for us. I'll start in Memphis because, again, Memphis did actually have National Guard deployment still there, thanks to Trump saying that Memphis is an unsafe town. That being said, on July 4th weekend, there was a shooting which led to a loss of life. That was actually engagement with the National Guard.
Be on a special detail frequency citywide task force.
According to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, Sunday morning, 20-year-old Tyron Johnson was shot and killed by two Tennessee National Guard soldiers assigned to the Memphis Safe Task Force. TBI says it started with a shots fired call.
Ryan Weaver, producer at Action News 5, also lives near Ida B. Wells in Union. He says he heard the initial shots.
3:45, 3:50 in the morning, I heard about 2 or 3 shots.
Then he heard and saw more.
A little bit after that, I heard, I would probably say about maybe 8 to 12 more shots. So look out my bedroom window again, and then see a bunch of National Guard troops running through the parking lot towards Union Avenue.
Johnson's family is reeling from his unexpected death. Terrence Pope says Johnson was like a son.
Killing him, it messed everybody up. He was number 20 years old. I haven't even started living this life yet.
Johnson was a new dad, moved to Nashville, and came to Memphis for the weekend.
I couldn't do nothing but think about, we just went to Chicago and got your baby. And like now his baby got to grow up without him.
As the investigation continues, questions surround what led to the National Guard shooting Johnson. Look at these reports. Memphis police say Johnson turned toward the National Guard with a gun. Hours later, the National Guard says soldiers responded to a shots fired call involving an armed male. Then later, the TBI says that portion of the incident is under investigation.
I don't know what's true or not, so I can't speak on it.
Pope says Johnson was not violent and questions the Memphis Safe Task Force. The White House and Governor Bill Lee's office did not respond to a request for comment.
All I can say is, if y'all gonna fight against the violent criminals, get the violent ones for real, not the ones y'all think bad, because the people y'all think bad, it might not be bad.
And the problem is when you basically, and we said this really at the beginning of this, when Trump was instituting, he had taken over DC and put in National Guard there, then Chicago, then California, and of course Memphis, because he believes these are terrible cities. We said before, if National Guard are not law enforcement, they're not trained in law enforcement. National Guards are trained in combat. And the fact that, thanks to never sober Pete Hegseth, he allowed the National Guard to be armed. So I'm not saying, again, the story is developing and we're trying to figure out why the National Guard did shoot to terminate. But at the same time, this is what happens when you introduce combat units into a civilian area. They're going to only respond to how they've been trained, because they weren't there to de-escalate. They are there to respond. So again, we'll follow that story as it comes along, guys. But again, this is, I hate to say it. And again, Trump's work, that young man's death is on Trump's hands. Pretty much. But going to Florida for a little while, because a black woman defended herself. And it is amazing that staying your ground is not being said about this.
More breaking news now. A man is in the hospital with life-threatening injuries after a shooting in a Walmart parking lot. CBS News Miami's Nakaya Kerr is your reporter live in North Lauderdale tonight, and that's where those shots were fired in the middle of the day, Nakaya.
That's right, Jim. BSO says that man was found here in this Walmart parking lot off McNabb Road with a gunshot wound. One man we spoke to says he was shocked to drive up and see his Walmart parking lot covered in crime scene tape.
I was walking up, I heard a lady screaming. She was screaming and she was saying a lot of things.
BSO says a 911 call came in for a shooting in the Walmart parking lot around 12:28 p.m. When deputies arrived on scene, they found a man with a gunshot wound. Chopper 4 captured deputies walking with a woman whose hands were handcuffed behind her back. Deputies say one person was detained, but did not confirm if it was a woman in the video. A customer who arrived after the shooting told us what he heard from an employee inside of the store.
He told me, there was this gentleman approached her and he kept making advances at her. And she kept saying, look, I'm not interested. Back up, look, I'm not interested. And I guess she got scared. And he said that when she got scared, she took out a gun and she shot him.
And for the most part, that's what's been going on. Again, developing story. And there have been multiple videos about it. And how I know there's multiple videos about it, I'm just gonna show this so you guys know what I'm talking about. So again, they're showing multiple videos about what has happened. That's the woman right there. Of course, the man's approaching her, and as you can see, the shot. Now, from a lot of people, and again, this is from witnesses' statements, that the woman said repeatedly, back up, back up, back up. She showed her firearm, and as you can see, she shot. Now, I will say this because, again, this is in Florida, Broward County, I believe. So, of course, in Florida, the stand your ground laws are in effect there. So, I will say this because in this day and age, I don't blame Black people for arming up because you don't know who in the blue is coming towards you. I know for a lot of people, they're going to sit there and say, "Oh, but Will, but did she really have to shoot?" As a Black woman in a predominantly racist state, yeah. I mean, if she gave, and I'm going to be honest, if she gave enough warnings, because again, I can still carry. I can still carry. I hope I never have to use it, but I do give warnings too. But I also don't put myself in situations where I feel like because I do have a firearm that I can impose my will on people. That's not how it works. So again, with the woman there, it sounded like she was giving warnings. The guy didn't care and kept moving forward. She pulled out a gun and she asserted herself. Now, of course, with the stand your ground law in Florida, we've seen how it works because it apparently worked for George Zimmerman. So we'll see how it works for this woman as that story develops. But a lot of people are sitting there saying, it's amazing. All the lawyers came out and said, all the lawyers on social media, that's not self-defense. If a person is coming to you, you give them plenty of warning and you feel like your life is threatened, that sounds like self-defense to me. But like I said, it's a developing story. We'll definitely catch that as it comes along. That being said, this one's gonna hurt my heart a little bit just because Nolan Wells, if you've never heard this story, this is going to be the first year of it. It is a trigger warning for parents and Black people alike. So you have been warned, but we do need to tell this man's story.
Mississippi have located a body they believe likely belongs to a teen missing since the 4th of July. 18-year-old Nolan Wells was last seen on Horn Island Saturday. The barrier island is a popular vacation spot. The local sheriff's office says Wells was there with friends for the holiday when he was reported missing. ABC's Alex Perez is following this case for us. And Alex, great to see you. What's the latest with this?
Yeah, Stephanie, officials unfortunately say it appears we're dealing with a tragic ending in this case after beloved 18-year-old Nolan Wells disappeared July 4th after going on a boating trip with friends. Now, sadly, officials say a body matching the description of the 18-year-old was recovered about 8:45 this morning just off the shore of Horn Island, a popular holiday destination about 10 miles off the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Now, the teen and friends reportedly took a boat trip to the Barrier Island for the 4th of July holiday. He was last seen on Saturday at about 3 p.m. After he vanished, his family and friends making an emotional plea for help, flooding social media with pictures of the outing showing Wells and a group of friends on a boat. The 18-year-old seen holding what appears to be a hard or alcohol seltzer in his hand. The Jackson County Sheriff's Department, the Cajun Navy, and many volunteers spending much of the weekend searching for Wells. It remains unclear what exactly happened to him. Authorities say they are still working to figure out what exactly went wrong here as his community now grieves. Stephanie?
This is so tragic or hard.
Yeah, it is tragic. It is tragic. It is heartbreaking that an 18-year-old was found and is no longer with us. But here's the thing that bothers me. The thing that bothers me, guys, is that for a lot of news publications that are out there, this picture, that picture is not being shown. That bothers me. And I say why that bothers me, guys, is because that is the picture of him with his friends. And I'm not going to apologize what I'm about to say next, because he is the only Black kid among white friends on a boat, more than likely drinking. You're telling me, and we've seen this before, and I'll show the next video of what I mean, but this young man was with 3 of his so-called friends, went out on a boat, and 3 friends came back without him, and that's not weird. Like, why isn't that? And again, why aren't these other guys being questioned? Why are these other guys being brought up? Because again, 3. I mean, and I'm not trying to be racist or prejudiced. This is more self-preservation. Why? Because as a black person, and as a father, I remember a long time ago, my parents sat there and said, if you are the only black person in a group of white folks, you don't go with them. Now, as a kid, that messed with me a little bit. Why can't go with my friends? I can't go here, I can't go there. I'm the only black person. My parents sat there and looked at me and said, hell no, you can't go. No way, no how, you can't go. And as a kid, kids don't understand because kids just want to go hang out with their friends. As a kid, I didn't understand. But now as a grown man with kids of my own, I freaking get it because it's a safety issue. Because I've said it before, and I've said it, and I've witnessed it. It's almost as if you're at an office party with white people and you're the only black person. And I've said this before too. If you're at an office party and there's alcohol and white people are drinking, you better stay freaking sober. You better have your own way home. You better have a way of getting out if you need to, because self-preservation. Because this happened in Mississippi. Mississippi is a graveyard of black people and stories. This young man lost his life. 3 of his white friends came back home. Some of his white friends have parents who are judges and in law enforcement. Those same 3 white kids, their socials are now deactivated. Those very same 3 white kids are all back home with their families. The one black kid that went with them came up missing, and now all these questions. Self-preservation. Because if you're like me, and I say this all the time, if you're like me, you got told 2 things as you're growing up. Don't go nowhere where you're the only black person in the group. And if a bunch of you who are black people, you've all heard this before. A group of black people have always heard this before. You leave together, you go together, you leave together. Nobody gets left behind. That is not just something that parents do say. That is safety. There is safety in numbers, because when I tell you the truth, for the simple fact of the matter, it's one of those things where as parents, again, I'm a parent now, but again, as I got older, I understood. I got understood that, yeah, it might seem fun to go out. And then people are going to say, well, that sounds incredibly prejudiced and racist. I said, no, it's self-preservation. Because you cannot, they might seem all fun. They might seem all this. But if you're the only one in a group of them, if your sense of awareness is not heightened, you could be a victim. And again, I'm not saying that these three friends may or may not allegedly may know, but I'm just saying for these 3 white boys to be lawyered up and to not be speaking and their socials are turned off, that looks mighty freaking suspect. That's all I'm saying. But the reason why that story reminds me of something, because it reminds me of a black woman that did a sleepover with her white friends, and by next morning, she was no longer with us.
Forsyth County house party is drawing a lot of interest here and across the country. Many, including her friends, are not convinced this was an accident.
Jose Barrera is a witness who used his position with the county to get the police report. He was fired for doing that. The report shows that he told detectives the woman fell to her death. Channel 2's Mike Pachenik reports from Forsyth County. He also got the report and exclusive video from the party.
Happy birthday to you.
A source gave us this video of an adult slumber party last November in Forsyth County. One of the attendees was mother of 5, Tamala Hosford. Another video shows her talking to what appears to be a very drunk partygoer. The next morning,
have y'all checked to see if she's breathing?
a 911 call about a disturbing discovery.
She's not moving one bit. She's not breathing.
The man making that call was the homeowner's boyfriend, Jose Barrera, seen in this video at the party. We first told you last week about how Forsyth County fired Barrera after they say he misused his position as a probation officer to access incident reports about Hosfer's death during an active investigation. Here's what he told dispatchers.
I'm noticing a small right cut on her right rib. She's not bleeding whatsoever. I don't know if this cut truly was self-inflicted.
Even though a death certificate someone provided to us claims her death was accidental and after a fall from a balcony that caused multiple blunt force trauma, do you believe somebody murdered her?
I do believe that her life was taken from her, yes.
Best friend Michelle Graves says a family-hired medical examiner found extensive injuries all over her body.
But it's impossible to get the injuries that she had from one fall.
According to a copy of the incident report we got a hold of, witnesses told detectives all of the females in the house were drinking heavily. That Tamala arrived with a bottle of tequila and that she was very social and kept engaging in conversation when everyone else was trying to go to sleep.
I'm just trying to find out what happened to my friend.
Channel 2's Mike.
I'm just saying, and that story of that person was almost 7 years ago. 7 years ago, Tamala Horsford, a woman that spent the night with all her white friends, and she was the only woman that died the next day. How? And I said it before and I say it again. It's stories like that is the reason why, is the absolute reason why I keep saying you have to be aware. You have to be aware of your situations and the people you're with. Because again, if you are the only person of color in a group of white folks, again, make sure that you have everything covered. You don't drink alcohol, and you definitely got exits. As we now, and now Nolan Wells is going to be another story of another lost soul in a state where it might as well be a black man's graveyard. But we will cover that story as it comes along, because trust me, I'm pretty sure those three white boys and Fox News will try to defend them in some way. At the same time, they will try to character assassinate that young man because, again, he's not here to defend himself. But speaking of people that are defending themselves, Carmelo Anthony, because that was also an injustice. His new attorney group is filing an appeal saying that he was denied his constitutional rights, and he was. And at the same time, that very same new attorney group is asking the judge be removed from the case. I am all for that. Again, Carmelo Anthony was the young man who defended himself against someone else with a knife at a track meet. And also at the same time, for a lot of people that don't remember, the prosecution removed all black people from the jury. So Carmelo Anthony was convicted by an all-white jury in Texas. During that first initial case, he was sentenced 35. He was going to be sentenced 35 years. They are appealing because, again, the evidence was there that was not presented. May get presented in the next case, but we will see. But at the same time, oh yeah, that young man was definitely railroaded, and hopefully he will get a new trial because he did defend himself. That being said, guys, the last thing we'll get to before we get to our feel good news subject, guys, is, well, you ever seen a rail work? How can I put this ever so nicely? Because it is the 4th. It was the 4th 4 days ago. I don't believe in the 4th because, let's be honest, the 4th of July, there were still slaves. So if you celebrate the 4th of July, good on you. If it was, for me, it was another day. It was another day off to grill and hang out with family and friends. That being said, this conductor in Chattanooga, why my state of Tennessee? Why my state of Tennessee? I don't freaking know. But he decided to let his feelings be known as far as the 4th. But I'll let him tell it.
To the very, very few Americans in here, happy Independence Day. To the rest of you, welcome to the greatest country on the face of the planet. And if you disagree, you can leave. To the very, very few Americans in here, happy Independence Day. To the rest of you, welcome to the greatest country on the face of the planet. And if you disagree, you can leave.
Yes, if you disagree, you can leave. Imagine you being a railroad train conductor in Chattanooga, and you decided on the 4th of July to sit there and say, hey, for all those that were not, all these non-Americans, you can leave, but for everybody else, welcome to the greatest state in all the United States, America, baby. You can dang near hear the redneck in his voice. However, that man was fired, as he should be, because telling non-Americans you can leave is the most un-American thing you can do. It is crazy where this man decided to sit there and say to the very, very few Americans in here, happy America, happy Independence Day. To the rest of you, welcome to the greatest country on the face of the planet. And if you disagree, you can leave. It is amazing to me that someone like that can sit there and say something. And like I said before, social media, unfortunately, has allowed a lot of people to be emboldened. I will say that. It has allowed a lot of people to be emboldened. But America is a nation of immigrants. The only people that have been here that don't need to go anywhere are Native Americans. Outside of that, everybody else, you either came willingly or unwillingly, depending on your ancestors. But the fact of the matter is, this guy felt so inclined to sit there and, treat America like, hey, love it or leave it or get the F out. Not realizing that America was built off immigrants, that it was people of color that had the greatest inventions. It was immigrants that built roadways and actually helped with construction in other areas. It's immigrants that literally helped keep the farmers' fields alive, as well as the service industry alive, as well as other various things, doing the jobs you don't want to do. Taking care of things that you don't want to take care of and getting paid menial wages at that. But you want to sit there and tell everybody else, if you don't like it, you can leave. Let me tell you something for all white folks. If every person of color did leave, if every person of color, every person you consider a non-American, every person you consider a non-American, if they did leave this country, this place would be burning in 2 weeks. You don't want that. I mean, it's just like the U.S. soccer team. The U.S. soccer team was a team of immigrants, and you can tell it was a team of immigrants because Diaper Don didn't even tweet about them that much, because the face that they had were not the same face he would love to see. That's the national in him coming out. But I'm not surprised. I don't feel bad about the guy losing his job. I don't feel bad the fact that he just made a lot of people who are just visiting the state uncomfortable. At the same time, if you feel that strongly, there's some nationalism places you can go to. I'm sure JD Vance would love to have you if he's not already having a couch. But that being said, we are going to move on to our feel good segment, because usually how the Frack got here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes makes you faith humanity, but hey, it's Wednesday, tomorrow's Thursday. We'll leave you guys out some good vibrations, and hopefully we'll do just that with Mayor Mamdani giving a July 4th speech that honestly needs to be heard a lot more.
Good morning, my fellow Americans. Season after season, year after year, the tides have come in and out of New York Harbor. Long before the name New York had ever been spoken, Lenape dugouts crossed these currents. It was on these waters that tall masts crested the horizon, captained by explorers like Verrazano and Hudson, after whom we've named our bridges and rivers. And ever since, ships full of travelers weary from long journeys have passed through the Narrows, the winds of the Atlantic at their backs. When those passengers lifted their heads to glimpse what lies just beyond the waves, what did they see? They saw land, lush and teeming with life. They saw men waiting at the docks to take them into bondage. They saw tenements rife with squalor. They saw industry rumbling with activity, steam and smoke rising, a city on the move. They saw a towering monument to freedom, her torch glowing worldwide welcome. They saw New York City. They saw America. Tomorrow, our nation marks 250 years since we declared our independence. 250 years of a grand experiment in self-governance, an experiment so audacious that some in 1776 doubted it would last more than a few years, let alone a quarter of a millennium. From Lexington to Los Angeles, Selma to Seneca Falls, Morrisania to Midwood, Americans will come together for a day, just as we do each year. Families will gather around the grill. Fireworks will fill the night sky. This will be no ordinary day of celebration. 250 years presents a rare opportunity for more than 340 million people to turn together, both towards one another and towards ourselves, to take measure of who we are as a nation. When we look at America, what do we see? Here at City Hall, as I sit behind George Washington's desk, alongside new Americans who came to this country, I cannot see all of America. But like so many who came before, I can see New York City. The city I see today looks very different than the one that greeted George Washington. In July of 1776, our city simmered under the yoke of oppression. The British had imposed a colonial rule so repressive that 250 years ago, 80 miles south, a small group of newspaper editors, farmers, and soldiers signed their names on a document declaring truths that feel self-evident now, but were revolutionary then, establishing the ideals our nation still strives to fulfill. The British did not take it well. War broke out. And that August, as the largest battle of the Revolutionary War unfolded in Brooklyn, batteries on Governor's Island took aim at British ships anchored just offshore. We were outgunned, we were outmanned, and we were soundly defeated. After only a few months, it appeared our fledgling attempt at democracy was on the precipice of collapse. But that night, with the moon overhead, thousands of our soldiers silently climbed into ferries and flat-bottom boats and escaped to Manhattan. The Continental Army survived to fight another day. Independence may have been declared in Philadelphia, but it was rescued in New York City. George Washington was the last to leave Brooklyn. As he waited at the river's edge, the sun beginning its rise, he would have looked out over New York City's waters and seen what so many have seen in the 250 years since, an opportunity to begin anew. Those opportunities, like everything in New York City, are not given. They are won. In 1838, 11 years after New York outlawed slavery, a recently emancipated black man by the name of James Weeks sought to begin anew as well, and to help hundreds of others do the same. He bought property in Brooklyn, won himself the right to vote, and sold lots to others newly freed. When they landed in New York Harbor, they knew they had something waiting for them that they had never had before, a home. Weeksville still stands today, a living, breathing testament to what we know America to be, a place each of us has the power to make. The harbor was busy those years as ships poured in from around the world. Hundreds of thousands of Irish immigrants arrived with stomachs aching from a famine manufactured by imperial cruelty. Chinese sailors settled in what is today Chinatown. Millions more traveled under the Statue of Liberty and through Ellis Island. Jewish people escaping pogroms, Italians fleeing poverty, Syrians seeking economic opportunity. Each of these new arrivals peered through portholes onto a city that was changing as fast as the nation. They saw merchants peddling their wares on the docks, streets being laid out on a grid, buildings rising into the clouds. They could not yet see the nativism they would face, the jobs they would be refused, the landlords who would not rent to them, and the abject labor and living conditions they would withstand. But no matter how much smog hung over the harbor, they still saw an opportunity to begin anew. Over the years that followed, despite laws enacted by the federal government to bar their entry, despite sweatshop fires that killed hundreds of women, despite riots aimed at their very existence, immigrants made homes here in New York City, and they helped to make New York City. That legacy of every generation of Americans insisting that the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness extends to them too, is no relic of the past. It carried millions of Black Americans north during the Great Migration. It drew hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans to New York City after the Second World War. It invited countless others from the West Indies and South Asia and West Africa and across the world. And it is what brought my family to this city when I was 7 years old. My family did not arrive by boat. although we saw the Statue of Liberty from the window of the plane. Even from the air, we could make out the promise of America, the promise of the beautiful patriotic work of rendering America, year after year, a little more faithful to its founding ideals. There is a term so often used to describe our nation and those who have shaped it: American exceptionalism. American exceptionalism, the conventional wisdom tells us, makes our freedom a little more free, is how we dug the Erie Canal and irrigated the West, is why children in faraway lands grow up dreaming of one day moving here. And yet the irony is that the story of America has so often been written by those who were told by others with power and influence and wealth that they were anything but exceptional. For generation after generation, we have been told that when the world has sent its people to our shores, it has not sent its best. It sent Puritans and Sikhs and Quakers and Muslims and Jewish people who were banished for praying the wrong way, worshiping the wrong gods, angering the wrong people. It sent peasants and serfs from slums and shtetls who were treated as less because they hardly owned clothes, let alone land. It sent immigrants from whom power was something someone else had. We are told that America is exceptional because we are richer, stronger, more powerful than everyone else. The truth, my friends, is that America is exceptional because here, nothing is fixed into place. The frontier may be closed, we may have walked on the moon, but the work of fulfilling the values first enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, that work endures, and it belongs to us all. It belongs to our newest Americans, those standing here with me today, all of whom were recently naturalized. Nearly a decade ago, I too felt what you feel, the joy of no longer being just a New Yorker, but an American too. You each hold a special power, the power to determine what America means. The powerful have always known their answer. America, in their view, is an arena of supremacy, where only a select few are allowed freedom, where not all are created equal. America, if you ask them, becomes less the more people it welcomes. America, they will tell you, belongs only to those with the right accent or the right shade of skin. The rest of us, they insist, should be grateful for merely being allowed to visit. How small they are, how weak, how unoriginal. At every moment in our past, those who led through exclusion and isolation have tried to win power and enrich themselves by turning us against one another. Division is the oldest trick in politics and the cheapest. But time and again, including 250 years ago, those forces of division have been vanquished by the forces of progress. As Thomas Paine once wrote, "This new world hath been the asylum for the persecuted lovers of civil and religious liberty. Hither have they fled." And yet today, too many of our leaders do not believe in a vision of this nation as an asylum for the persecuted, but rather as one that persecutes those seeking asylum. As we mark 250 years, what do we see? We see a city of contradictions within a nation of contradictions. We see the wealthiest country in the history of the world, one where children go to sleep hungry while the world's first trillionaire hungers for more. We see monopolies that dominate every industry and oligarchs who buy elections. We see masked agents terrorizing our streets, eating food cooked by our undocumented neighbors before spiriting them away in unmarked vans. We see a nation whose immense wealth has been built by those with calloused, dirt-streaked hands, those who toil on factory floors and chisel into stone. And we see a nation that has allowed so much of that wealth to be held instead in the soft hands of a precious few. Yes, we see America in a health insurance industry that exploits the sick, but that is not all we see when we look for America. We see it too in the nurse who works a double shift and then stops on her way home to check on an ailing neighbor. Yes, we see America in corporate landlords for whom negligence is a business model. We see it too in the father who tucks his children into bed beneath a ceiling stained with leaks, who wakes before dawn to go to work and still believes his country can do better by his family. Yes, we see America when we spend our tax dollars on bombs and bailouts, when we sell our elections to the highest bidder. Yet we see it just as clearly in every American who still believes this country belongs to we, the people. We see America each time neighbors link arms with neighbors without asking how long they have lived here or what papers they have, as ICE invades our neighborhoods. We see America each time those young and old stand in the beating rain or the stifling heat to cast their ballots. We see America each time working people demand more, not just for themselves, but for their fellow Americans. There are some who respond to those who ask for more from America with a simple refrain. Love it or leave it, they say. But patriotism has never been about pretending our nation is without flaws. Patriotism is every act of righteous dissent. It is every march led under the heavy sun. It is every protest held a decade before its time. It is precisely because we love this nation that we will not leave it. After all, who loves America more than those who have sacrificed so much to make it free? Today, I think not only of the 4th of July, I think too of the 9th of July. 5 days after the Declaration of Independence was signed, it arrived here in our New York City. Redcoats had disembarked on Staten Island. More than 100 British ships loomed just offshore. Across this city, the Continental Army prepared for an invasion. George Washington commanded his brigades to assemble just a few feet from this building. It was known then as the Commons. Today, we call it City Hall Park. There, within range of British guns, Washington ordered his generals to read the Declaration aloud. And with the world's mightiest empire poised to attack, Washington told the people of New York City what we will celebrate tomorrow, that we had declared our independence, that freedom was within reach. That evening, danger loomed. Conflict was not a question, but a certainty. And yet when those early New Yorkers marched toward the statue of King George III that stood in the Bowling Green, a statue they would melt down into bullets for their young army, they walked in unison, grounded not in the pursuit of plunder, but in ideals that for the first time had a name: America. Those ideals upon which our nation was built, they are strong enough to endure any authoritarian regime, but only if we reach for them. Ours is a nation working each day towards the perfection in which it was conceived, a nation striving each day to better itself. Therein lies the work of America, the striving, the bettering, the reaching towards perfection. What a privilege each of us has to live in a nation that every one of its inhabitants can shape. What a responsibility each of us possesses to prove ourselves worthy of all those who came before. What power each of us holds to bring America ever closer to the greatness so many have seen when they looked upon these shores, the greatness that for 250 years has been America. Thank you. God bless America. God bless New York City, and happy 4th of July.
Now, what's amazing is he gave an entire 4th of July speech, not blaming anybody, not making it about himself. I'm just going to be honest. Whenever Mom Donnie talks, you can't help but feel a little bit of hope. Little bit. Just saying. But that's going to do this podcast, guys. Thank you all for liking, for watching, for letting people know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Shameless plugging before we do get out of here, guys. Shout out to APR TV. Why? Because our show, How the Frack Got Here, can be seen on APR TV. It's an app that's on the Roku channel as well as Amazon Fire. You can definitely check out other shows as well as ours on there. You will definitely not be disappointed on Always Press Record or APR TV for short. BlurStation.com. We have talked about this now going on 2 years, guys. It is a streaming site with content for us, by us to enjoy. $10.99 a month. $10.99 a month to stream Blur Station. And Blur Station can be streamed on all smart devices. Definitely check that out. Also, check us out on YouTube at How the Frack Got Here. Literally type in How the Frack Got Here. We are the first thing that does pop up. Kind of proud about that. Hit the like, share, subscribe, notification buttons. Anytime that we do go live or a show is uploaded, you can definitely be notified of that. Thank you, all 126 subscribers. I cannot stress that enough. That have been rocking with us so far. If this is your first time watching this, guys, definitely like, share, hit the subscribe button. And like I said, we just keep moving it forward because the mission is to inform and to educate, and we are definitely going to keep doing that. Also, check out Blurred's Eye View. Myself and other compadres every Tuesday and Thursdays. We're on a little bit of a season hiatus right now, but, and this is going to sound very confusing as I say this, we will actually have a show tomorrow night covering X-Men, so definitely check us out. But on Blurred's Eye View, definitely check us out there at YouTube page. You can see there. If you'll scroll down, you can definitely find us, all of us there, that you can like, share, and subscribe. Room full of blurs, so she covers all indie comic artists and creators, as well as does streaming every Sunday at 7 p.m. Definitely check her out. Geek by Heart, as they are now back up and running. Husband and wife, Laney and Jay. I believe Laney right now might be streaming The Walking Dead, but definitely check them out. Also, Tafari TV Gaming, Tafari TV's second gaming channel. He does modern retro games, and he does so from an exercise bike. He is definitely the originator of that. My other video game podcast, the Get Bit Podcast, every Friday, 30-ish. Definitely check that as well. Of course, How the Frack Got Here, you're currently watching right now. Navy Montella, BlurryCon Conversations. He definitely interviews definitely dope cosplayers and guests, and also does video game streaming like Marvel Snap as well. Shokwo, our looter shooter that definitely keeps up on animes, mangas, and video games like Overwatch and Lorcana. Lore of the Culture, as he covers everything comic books and everything Hollywood. Definitely check him out. Of course, Tafari TV's original page. And of course, even though she's not showing here, definitely check out Whoop-De Freaking Do or Fresh Press by Z on Instagram for all your nail needs. You will, again, not be disappointed by anybody here. So definitely like, share, and subscribe, everybody, as we all have different things to bring to the table. My own personal, Black_Spartan615. You can definitely follow me there on Facebook, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram. Pretty much wherever's a social, you can find me. I usually talk to everybody. Just don't make it weird. I'm going to get the whole habit of blocking people. As I said before, guys, we are in the midterm. We're not too far away from midterms. We are 4 months away and counting. I cannot stress this enough. Please make sure your registration is up to date. Please make sure you have everything that you need to go to. If you have early voting, please do that if you can. We'll save yourself on the line. But again, guys, this is one of those ones where we need to all be involved and we all need to speak up, because if your vote didn't matter, they would not be changing the goalpost to make sure that they didn't. So again, definitely keep that in mind. Outside of that, guys, please check your mental health is everything. Whatever the mind does, the body follows. Please take advantage of all services and therapies for good mental health, because a good mind leads to a healthy body. Trust me, I understand we're all going through something, but definitely have your outlets to where you can breathe, you can relax, you can refocus and get back at it. Men, go to the doctor. Can't stress that enough. I cannot stress that enough. There is no excuses. We need to be around. We need to be around for loved ones, families, and friends. So go to the doctor, get it all done. Yeah, it's not going to be pleasant, but you'll be thankful for it afterwards. Excuse me. Wow. That being said, the last thing I'll say about How the Frack Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, guys. We are simply giving you all the information and value to make up your own mind. But we do provide a lot of perspective that goes along with it. We do better as society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Reserve of Governors, and maybe one day electing our first Black woman we call Madam President. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up at our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and I promise we will all get through this. Live long and prosper, guys. I'm out. Peace.